like you said, you can start on the state level and just make sure those congressmen get in, make sure even somebody as small as the city council or the mayor, making sure that those elections are fully supported by voting and campaigning and all that stuff. It trickles down to these bigger elections. And so, instead of sitting home and being upset with who's in office and what they're doing, taking a stance and really going out there and making sure all your friends vote and working the polls and endorsing these people who you deem to be future great elected officials is super important. And it definitely does work if you are persistent with it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
When I was 32, I left my job to stay at home and raise my children for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always enjoyed working. I became a little bored, and I decided to attend some local town council meetings. I ended up running an environmental nonprofit that ended up suing the federal branch of the EPA.
Wow.
I stopped one of the largest power plant builders in the world from building a plant in Londonderry, New Hampshire,
mm-hmm.
and I stopped a power plant from being sited in Connecticut. It was because I was a 32-year-old young mother who
mm-hmm.
decided that I wanted to get involved in local politics.
Wow.
And once I became involved in local politics, I decided I was going to form a political action committee. And I ran my own people for local office. And then I ran for office. And then I started supporting people on the statewide level. And people started coming to me. I was a witness for the Attorney General's office in New Hampshire.
Wow.
So it's amazing the power that each one of you listening has to change the world. It's just a matter of saying, I'm going to become interested, even at the local level. I want to know how my town or city is run. I want to see the budget. I want to go to a zoning meeting. I want to go to a town or city council meeting. That's where it starts. And you will stand out because not enough young people or older people are interested.
Right. Wow, that is amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
I would urge you to stay involved and make sure your friends stay involved because it's vitally important. We need young people who are willing. Another thing I can tell you about my daughter,
mm-hmm.
She, while at Emerson, was asked to work for the Obama campaign when he was running for office.
Wow.
And the job that they gave her was driving Michelle Obama and the children around to house parties in New Hampshire.
Wow.
This is when he was still a candidate.
Wow.
So you never know who you're going to end up talking to and who you're going to meet.
That is true.
And it's provided endless opportunities for her as an adult. She was a liaison to the city council and the mayor in Boston at one point. But beyond your own career aspirations, everyone can have a part in changing this world. We are way too complacent.
Yes.
And as long as you say, I don't need to vote, I don't need to become interested in anything, nothing will change.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for calling in. That was amazing. And that is exactly the message that we needed to get out tonight. Especially with all the craziness.
Stay fired up, young lady.
Of course.
I like what you're doing. So
thank you.
Keep it up. All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye. All right. Well, as you heard, get out there and get involved. That is the only way that things are going to start changing and these tensions are going to be eased a little bit is if people, regardless of which side you're on, you got to speak up. You can't just sit home and get on Twitter and burn your stuff. You have to speak up and get out there. You have to. So,
right.
Aside from the voting issue, you also touched on the racial wounds that this campaign has seemed to reopen. And, I'm not going to say that this campaign alone has reopened those issues, but obviously race in America is such a bigger fish to fry. But specifically with what's been going on lately, I just actually recently, over the break, this last commercial break we had, went on Instagram, and the rapper 2 Chainz was giving his 2 cents on this Nike campaign, and he threw around this term that everybody's been kind of throwing around lately, which is that this whole Nike campaign will be the start of a race war in America. And a race war is a concept that has been thrown around, especially within these last few years with all this craziness. So what do you think about that concept? And do you think that it's really this Nike campaign that would get something like that started, or have the racial tensions already been building up? I mean, yes, of course they have. But is it more about this Nike campaign kind of igniting it a little bit more? Do you think it really even has anything to do with that? What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Thin Bad?
Yeah, I don't think it will be, all that happened with the last election pretty much is all it did was just pull the cover back. I think, it was there. Right. As much as people talk about the president, I'm not the people like, I can't believe he's saying this, or people who wait to see, well, what's the president going to say about this? I don't even know why people are looking for what he's going to say, because it's always something ridiculous. So I don't really look at him. He didn't really frighten me. I think before, when he was going to be elected, what I was worried about more so, even at the time, I thought it was an outside chance that he would get elected. But if he did, what I was more concerned about was what was going to happen to the Supreme Court and things like that, things that would happen because he was there. He didn't frighten me, but his supporters did, and do, is what they were willing to do, the things that they would say. It would just pull the covers off or pull the Band-Aid back on the wound that's still been festering ever since the country's foundation.
Right.
It's still there, and it's not going to go away. Nope. It's like putting, people say it's like putting a Band-Aid on cancer.
Right.
It's not going to fix it. It's not going to work at all. And until we all as a whole become willing to do the work, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not like you're going to be able to do something and be finished. This will be something that I won't, I can do it until my death, and then my kids would have to continue, and maybe even their kids and beyond would have to continue. It's that kind of thing. That it's something that you kind of chip away at every day, and you try to do it. You try to make small incremental movements along the way. What happens? We've got, for all intents and purposes, we have these pockets of privilege and elitism.
Right.
And if I can oversimplify for a second, there are three areas of privilege. It's usually, color, gender, and even that's being questioned at this point.
Right.
So if you're the wrong, whatever the wrong color is, if you're white, you have a certain privilege, and if you're male, you have a certain privilege. You sit in a certain seat of privilege in this country. And say, in terms of sexuality, whether you're if you're straight, there's a certain pocket of privilege that they have. I'm not trying to go into all of that stuff, but in this country as a whole, that's what they look at. Until people begin to, from their seats of privilege, wherever they may have it, until they begin to speak to others who share that privilege and say what we're doing is wrong, or what the benefits we reap are not, real benefits. Until everybody has the privilege that we have, then none of us have privilege, until people are willing to do that and give that kind of give that up and risk that, nothing's going to change.
Right.
I don't need for white politicians to come into my black neighborhood and tell me and the rest of my black friends how much they love black people.
Right.
I need you to go back to where you live. I need you to go back to where you live and say how much you love black people.
Right.
Me as a male, I don't need to, sit down and pound the gavel about and go to women and say, hey, I love, women. I'm all for women's rights, and I need to go back they're going to need me to go back to the gyms and to the golf courses or wherever the men are hanging out and say to men, until you start to see women as equals and that they deserve equal pay for the same job, until that happens, you're not going to see the change.
Right.
Until you have straight folks who are standing up for the rights of people who in the LGBT community, you're not going to have any. So it's always going to be this tension,
right?
Until you start to move yourself out of your pockets of privilege and elitism and start to see have some kind of moral empathy for other folks. And stop, quote unquote, othering everybody else,
right?
And deal with everyone's humanity. It's not going to change. It's not going to change. You see all of these studies on TV, these Dateline shows, and there was one where there was a black woman and a white woman to on site. That's what you saw, but they were really half sisters.
Wow.
And the white woman went through the line first, and she paid for something with a credit card and was out of the line. But the cashier did not know that they were, shopping together.
Right.
The black woman, her half sister, came through behind her. She handed her a credit card, and the woman asked her for ID and that and the other. And then the white woman, who she thought was going on, turned back and said, well, wait a minute, you didn't ask me for all of that.
Right.
Why are you asking her? You didn't ask me. What's different?
Right.
And until she put her on blast like that, if she had just gone out the store, it would just have been something else. But those are the kind of things that need to happen. And not only white to black, but male standing up for female. Each one has to stand up for the other, and we all have to stand up for the other. And as long as these factions can continue to create an other, or have this other that's out there, this them, and there's this us and them situation, it's going to be an issue. And this president, he thrives on that.
Right.
There's us, and everybody else is them.
Right.
There's those people that are taking things from you. There are those people coming over from another country who are stealing things from you. And all the while, these people are listening to that trash. Yep. And a lot of them are voting against their own self-interest. So then you have these campaigns that come up. For instance, this Nike Just Do It. Colin Kaepernick taking a stand for what it is, and no one is trying to see what he's saying. They're just harping on what it is they want it to be about and trying to find some way to make him of them and him being different from us. And, that's going to be the issue. I think that's until people are willing to step down off their pedestals of privilege, and you'll never get to this place. And when all this elitism moves away so that people can become equals, well, then we can start having those, we'll have those discussions, and we'll have an America that begins to really look like what's written on paper.
Right. And, going back to the idea of standing up for one another and stuff, I think that, earlier we talked about how in America this sense of community has sort of diminished. You, of course, have your churches and your schools and stuff like that, but, as far as the overall the overall idea of politics, it's kind of like everybody